IRS and its top officials coming under fire for targeting and even harassing Tea Party groups and conservative Americans who dare to criticize government spending and waste. How can they get away with that, you ask? And is it safe to say we can still trust our government? Joining us right now is a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and Homeland Security Committees. We're talking about Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator Paul, the IRS on the loose, but focusing only on Tea Party affiliated groups. Your reaction, and you heard about this before this became a big deal.
Yeah, and one of the things is I know one of the groups. I've spoken to one of the 912 groups that was inspired by Glenn Beck in Lexington. Eric Wilson has a 912 group there with thousands of members, and they were targeted by the IRS. But no, what I find inexcusable is if the president really is outraged by this, someone should lose their job. But one of my biggest complaints after 9/11 was with all the intelligence failures and all the failures to look at Moussaoi's computer, nobody was fired. Same thing here. They're now saying, well, maybe they're not allowed to fire people. What kind of government allows you to abuse people for their political speech and beliefs and then not be fired? Same with Benghazi. No one was ever fired. They were transferred and moved around. Government doesn't get any better because we never let anybody go.
Well, Senator, this is getting bigger because it started this small Cincinnati rogue operation. Now it's already in California and now in Washington. The tentacles are growing. Let's take a look at some of the people that are somehow linked to this story and just give me a sense of who you think should go. I mean, Doug Shulman, he was a former IRS commissioner appointed by Bush. 2 months after he said he had no idea about targeting, it turns out he was told in May about targeting. Lois Lerner, a senior IRS official, her link to this goes back to 2011. She's running the the tax-exempt Cincinnati office. Should she go?
Well, I'm not sure who goes, but it surely should be investigated. Anybody who was aware of and approved of targeting people for their political beliefs and speech needs to be fired, never in this position again, and made an example of.
Senator, there's no there. The President of the United States made it clear yesterday, kind of angry, fuming. He says, why do you keep on focusing on talking points? There's nothing new. What's your reaction to that?
On the targeting with, repeat that again with Benghazi?
Over in Benghazi yesterday, the president took two questions. One question, but two answers. One was the IRS. The other one was about Benghazi. He says there's no there. Nothing is new about this.
Yeah, you know, what I would say has always been biggest to me in Benghazi is they asked and pleaded for security in advance, well in advance, and it was denied. When Ambassador Pickering investigated, he said, well, the decisions were made well below Hillary Clinton. To me, that's the real problem. Hillary Clinton should have been involved, and it is her job as Secretary of State to be involved with security in Libya. That is not something that she can say, oh, I just never saw the cables. That's exactly why I find her culpable and why I don't think she was doing her job, is that she wasn't reading the pleas for help, and she was letting an underling, if that's true, letting an underling take the fall and make these decisions. But then the underling's not fired either. The underling's moved around. My guess is if the underling were fired, maybe they'd spill the beans on who actually was in charge of Benghazi security.
It's just so upsetting because in the private sector, people who are actually the CEO or in charge actually pay the price and take the responsibility, not lip service. The president not involved, the Secretary of State not involved, the Attorney General's not involved when it comes to the AP probing of phone calls, and now the IRS commissioner's not involved. That was just a rogue operation. But your dad disagrees with you when it comes to Benghazi. He says it is a sideshow, and here's the quote. This is Congressman Ron Paul. He says, the real lesson of Benghazi will not be learned because neither Republicans nor Democrats want to hear it, but it's our interventionist foreign policy and its unintended consequences that have created the problems. Your reaction?
Well, my guess is if he were here, he would not say all Republicans, because I'm sure he wouldn't be including me in that group. But what I would say is that the point is that with Libya, and I made the same point, many of the people who wanted to be involved in Libya also wanted to support Gaddafi with arms the year before, and then they were for toppling Gaddafi the next year. That this eagerness to get involved in war sometimes has unintended consequences. I think it's still yet to be determined what happens in Libya, whether the government that takes over is more pro-American or less pro-American than the previous government. Same exists in Egypt, and the same exists in Syria. While Assad is a bad guy in Syria, I'm also worried about al-Nusra and al-Qaeda taking over the country and actually being more enemies of Israel than the current regime.
Right. And Senator, I love what you're doing trying to get that doctor out that helped us get bin Laden. Hopefully you won't give up that fight.
We're working on it,
Right.
and everything we can do to get him free, we will do.
Great. Senator Rand Paul, thanks so much.